Hi, friends. I wanted to describe something that I think is pretty important uh, for the purposes of both astrology and astrological magic. In our conversation the other day that just recently got published, Douglas and I discussed the idea of working first with the day, the planetary day, and then starting to think about the hour. And we put off until a later date a conversation about how to use the decans for magic and how to use the mansions of the moon. I wanted to come here because it occurred to me that we didn't say something particularly important, and that is that because of the way the sky works, how do I put this? Because of the way that the sky works, you have two motions that are going on at the same time. You have the motion of the same. This comes out of Timaeus by Plato. You have the motion of the same, which is the sun rising every day and crossing the noon line at the height of the sky and then sinking into the west and going below the horizon and eventually reaching the midnight point and repeating that over and over again. And that's the motion of the same, what we call diurnal motion. We also have the motion of the different. And the different is the motion of the planets in what appears to be backward motion against the sky, so that planets, including the sun and moon, shift signs as well as rising in the east, crossing the noon line, and setting in the west every single day. I'm going to try to illustrate this. Right now, it's about 10 in the morning for me on a Sunday, June 4th. And we have the sun at 13 degrees of Gemini. And you can see that the sun came up over the eastern horizon. It is now sort of halfway between the horizon and the noon point, which is the midheaven, or Media Caeli. That's where this initiation comes from, this initialization. Media Caeli, or midheaven. And if I advance this by an hour, we see the sun move up towards the midheaven. At first, it looks like the midheaven is coming down to the sun, but that's sort of an artifact of the way that we build charts and the way that we animate them. But now you can see it's now 12:20, 2 hours have passed, and the sun has gone from being in the 11th house to being in the 10th house, and it has moved, but only a few minutes, but the midheaven has shifted slightly to meet where the sun is. And if I then advance by 10-minute units, eventually the sun crosses the quote unquote noon line at about 1 in the afternoon. And at this point, the sun is in the western half of the sky and sinking down into the west. I click this button to go back to the time now, which is 10:21. As this is happening, things are happening here, right? Right now, the ascendant, AS, is at 16 degrees of Leo. If I advance by 10 minutes, now the ascendant is at 18 degrees of Leo. If I go ahead another 10 minutes, it's at 20 degrees of Leo. And planets are coming up over the eastern horizon. If I click back, we can see that Mars is above the horizon, and Black Moon Lilith, which is a mathematically relevant point in the orbit of the moon, is below the horizon. And if I go ahead 10 minutes, we see the Black Moon Lilith has come up over the horizon. It's not visible because it's a mathematically located point. But if I go ahead another 10 minutes, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70 minutes, now the ascendant is in Virgo. The planets that we have in Leo are now in the 12th house, and Venus has shifted to the 11th house from the 10th house. the sun is approaching the horizon. If I go ahead an hour, now our ascendant is at 13 degrees of Virgo. If I go ahead another hour, the sun is now at 25 degrees of Virgo. The sun is past the horizon. If I go ahead another hour, we've got Venus approaching the midheaven. The ascendant is now in Libra. It's in Libra 1, in fact. And if I go ahead another hour, it's just at the end of Libra 2. And if I go ahead another hour, it's going to go all the way through Libra 3 and wind up in Scorpio 1. What does this mean? This means that every single decan gets activated on the eastern horizon some point during any 24-hour cycle. It is the diurnal cycle. It is the motion of the same. It is the motion that happens every single day. And obviously, it's caused by the rotation of our planet rather than the revolution of our planet around the sun. But that daily motion, the motion of the same, is always happening at essentially the same speed because we live on a planet that is rotating at a standard speed. Our planet is also revolving around the sun. And as a result, we also have the motion of the different. Coming back to now at 10:24 on June 4th. The sun is at 13 degrees. If I move one day, 24 hours to Monday, June 5th, the sun is now at 14 degrees. If I go another day to June 6th at 10:24 in the morning, the sun is now at 15 degrees. If I go another day, the sun is now at 16 degrees. If I go a full 7 days, the sun is now at 23 degrees. So this means that the moon activates every single decan every 30 days. In fact, every 29 and something days. Right? So every decan gets activated by the moon for at least some portion of time every single month. The sun activates every decan at least some portion every single year. So you can do magical work with any of the decans based on when it is coming up over the horizon or when it is passing the midheaven. You can do magical work for when the moon arrives in that decan over the course of a single month. You can do magical work with the sun over the course of a year. You can do magical work with each decan based on the placement of Mercury, again, over the course of a year. Same with Venus. Same with Mars, but over the course of 2 years. Same with Jupiter, but over the course of 12 years. Same with Saturn, but over the course of 30 years, and so on. So you have a yearly cycle that you can tap into based on the sun. You have a monthly cycle based on the moon, and you have a daily cycle based on either the ascendant or the midheaven, because every single decan is going to cross those points during the course of a single 24-hour period. And similarly, the moon is going to pass all of those points over the course of 28 or 29 days, and the sun is going to pass those points over the course of 365 days. So you have 3 different scales at which you can do decans work on any day of the year, on any day of the month, or on any day or in any hour of any day. You're simply looking for the moment when the decan that you wanted to work with comes either into the midheaven or comes to the ascendant. And now you can reach out to the spirits of that particular decan, ask them for assistance, and have some kind of relationship. Now, it helps if you've already done a decans walk over the course of a year to do that work on a daily basis when the ascendant happens to be in the decan of this particular hour. But we can, in fact, time this pretty precisely. If you wanted to work with Leo 3, for example, Leo 3 begins for me at just about 10:42 p.m. or 10:42 a.m. And it lasts until 11:33. So it so happens that that one is about 50 minutes long. That's a good long while in which to do some kind of a ceremony. And it allows you to access that capacity today, now, rather than waiting a full year or 6 months or 3 months to grab hold of that energy. But again, if you've done the work over the course of a year to connect by the sun, it's a whole lot easier. And similarly, we can go forward 7 days, 14 days, 21 days. To next month, and we can say, okay, the sun is in Cancer on July 16th, and the moon is going to be in that third decan of Leo on July 19th, starting at about 5:33 p.m. And that's going to last until July 20th. Until about 1:30 in the afternoon. So again, I have a really good long period in which to work with this particular energy in this particular part of the sky, and I don't have to wait, right? I can do the work today, or I can time it for the moon, or I can wait for the sun to arrive, which it will do not that long after July 19th. I'm sort of looking at, somewhere in the neighborhood of August 10th, which is not bad. Well, August, July 23rd, and then Decan 2 is going to be around July 23rd for Leo 1 and August 1st for Leo 2, and then August 10th is going to be sometime around when the sun moves into this particular decan that we're talking about, Leo 3. So I have 3 different windows over the course of a day, a month, or a year to work with. And given that that decan is associated with Mars, I can also do work with Mars while it is actually in that decan, which will be, sometime around June 21st. Yeah, June 24th. To July 10th, right? So I have several different windows on several different time scales to work with the decan as a power and a framework within my magical practice. I hope this helps, and I want to thank the members of my Patreon support group for giving me the encouragement to go ahead and make videos like this. If you'd like to become a member of my Patreon, I have levels at the $3 and $5 tier. Thank you. Bye.